أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to all the teachers joining us this afternoon or this morning or this evening, wherever you are in the world. But in the UK, of course, it's 4 p.m. In the late afternoon. So welcome to you all, wherever you may be, for our third Muslim Teachers webinar. And today, inshallah, we are blessed to have our speaker here, who is Dr. Muhammad Abdul Bari. And he'll be talking about the very important topic of developing children's reading habits and character. Now, we've got just over 50 people in the room, and what normally happens is we hope to double that figure as we go through the webinar, inshallah. Just to explain the rules to you, and that is that everyone's mic is muted, and so for the first part of this webinar, all mics will be muted except for my own and also the speakers. The speaker will present for however long he wishes, inshallah, after which there will be an opportunity for question and answers. And the way the question and answers will work is using the chat box, which is on the bottom right-hand corner. So I've only enabled the chat box at the moment for you to send messages to me. That will continue, inshallah. And we'll see how it goes. I mean, I think we progressed from last week, where we started to get questions from the floor, the virtual floor, so to speak. So why not, inshallah? Maybe we can take some questions, live questions, inshallah, voice, rather than relying on the chat box. I think we're all maturing with this online stuff. So let's get a bit more risky, inshallah, with some of the ways that we interact with you. Let's say your voices rather than hearing text, inshallah. Well, let's see how it goes. Okay, so let me introduce to you our speaker, inshallah. Dr. Muhammad Abdul Bari is an educationalist, parenting consultant, and author. His memoir, A Long Jihad, My Quest for the Middle Way, was published in the summer of 2018. After completing his PhD in physics from the King's College London in 1986, he worked as a physics researcher until 1990. He then joined secondary science teaching and took an early retirement as a behavior specialist teacher in 2011. Since then, he has focused on writing, working with civil society bodies, facilitating his own parenting course, and mentoring young people. He has a long involvement with a number of voluntary organizations, including the East London Mosque, the Muslim Council of Britain, Citizens UK, and Muslim Aid. He served as a board member of the London Organising Committee of the Olympic and Paralympic Games, London 2012. He is an honorary fellow of Queen Mary University of London and holds an honorary doctorate of education from the University of East London. MashaAllah. So we're very honored and privileged to have you here with us, Dr. Muhammad Abdul Bari. Over to you, inshallah. Bismillah. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi allazina istafa. Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala sayyidil mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabi ajmain. Jazakumullah khair, Brother Baba. Jazakumullah khair, brothers and sisters. I can see a few faces that I know. Ibrahim Khamisa, mashallah, after a long time. So Ramadan Kareem as well. So I'll be very easygoing today because the topic is very simple, and that's what I have been working for some time. I have written some articles, and the developing children's reading habits and character. This is probably, to me, the most fundamental aspect in our life, our parental life. And it has got an educational tone, it has got parenting tone, so I'll just try to mix both, inshallah. Now, before going into the real topic, I just want to say a few words on where we are as a community, say in Britain, as an ummah. And the current situation, especially in Britain, our educational achievement is, alhamdulillah, very good. I remember in the, say, 25, 30 years ago, Bangladeshis and Pakistanis, the 2/3 of Muslims in this country are from these communities. Their GCSE level was 21, 22, 5A star to C, compared to 55 national average. Now, these two communities has surpassed the national average, alhamdulillah. And many young people go to universities, getting good jobs. But one thing is sure, that social mobility of these two communities and general Muslim community is still very, very poor. We are not in the upper echelons in the society. We have lots of difficulties and challenges in the politics and media, but that's a different topic. And the other thing is, given the Muslim Ummah's relative decay, or more or less decay, during and after colonialism and the current struggle and all sorts of wars and refugee and crises, unfortunately, the Muslim Ummah is very, very poor in its knowledge capital or education capital or intellectual capital. So that's a big topic. So that's one of the reasons that I personally feel that we should start from our home, because home is the primordial institution for human beings on earth. And home and family, these are the main issues. And we have got two institutions for the Muslim Ummah. One is the home or family. Alhamdulillah, still in most places, I'm saying still and in most places, because there are cracks in some areas because of the impact of the modernization or liberalism, etc. But our family is still our anchor. And we have got the second institution is the mosque, masajid, which is number-wise a very good achievement for Muslims in this country. But when it comes to real purpose of educating our children or educating our adults, many of them are unfortunately not up to the mark, unfortunately. So what I also try, along with parenting, is try to convince co-leaders of our mosques and community organizations that simply educating children is tasbeed or prayer isn't enough. That is core, but we have to use our masajid to educate our children. Educate means Islamic knowledge, core knowledge, as well as the society, contemporary world, because that is relevant. If we cannot do this, then we will be in trouble. And we have seen, and history testifies, that Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's whole coming to this world and renaissance, or whatever you call, it was based on knowledge. Iman and Amal, which are the two main issues in Islam. Without knowledge, they could be meaningless, or without knowledge, they could not be fully observed or followed. And so that's one example that the divine, that was a divine plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send a prophet to educate the whole of humanity, and that shifted the paradigm. And unfortunately, for many reasons, that's a big history, we are in this mess. But let me say about another country, which is not Muslim, which is secular, or which is agnostic. I'm talking about Japan in the late 19th century. In 1868, when they realized that they were far, far behind the West, Europe's at the time. So a dynasty came called Meiji Dynasty, and they invested most of their resources and concentrated on the young people's primary and secondary education. And within a generation, Japan became the most reading nation, most educated nation, and still they are maintaining this legacy. I think Japanese are probably the most readers in this world. Okay, given this background, can I ask Babo to go to the next slide, inshallah? And the second slide talks about I'm probably converting the converse in here. I'm sure many of you are quite aware, but I want to focus our concentration on Islam not as a ritualistic religion, and I believe those who are in here mostly they don't see that. Islam has got basic core messages, and it has got core practices, and 5 pillars apart from salah or prayer, fasting is just once in a year, which we are going through now. And zakat is for the poor, for the rich people. And Hajj, that's once a year. Hajj once in a lifetime for the rich people, physically able people. So that means apart from this salah or prayer, other things, what are the other things in Islam? Okay, basic belief, which as a Muslim, we have to have firm belief or conviction, Allah, angels, and all these six things, and all these pillars, mainly salah in a day, 5 times, and that's not nafal and sunnah, it's only for 17 rakat. So I'm just trying to bring things easier for Muslims, anyone to follow, and especially for the young people, because our young people are often seen to be burdened with so many things in their childhood. And there is a different aspect of Islamic parenting through Islamic tradition. 0 to 7 should be the play and fun and learn and enjoy the life, and not coercing, not pressing. 7 to 14 is the basic educational learning period, and 14 to 21 is just taking through life skill and social skills as more or less friends. We are not friends of our children, but we are friendly. Okay, so apart from this belief, 5 pillars, and mainly salah in our case, staying on halal and shunning haram or major sins. The list of halal is not given in Islam. It's a few list of haram things and major sins. Apart from this, theologically, most of the things are halal unless there is some specific culture and other barriers. What exactly is Islam? And that is my main concern and concentration. And here I come with the idea of children's equipping with akhlaq or character. At the end of the day, akhlaq and character is the main thing. That takes probably 95, 97% of a human being, Muslims, in probably in a day or in a month or any time in this world. And Prophet ﷺ has mentioned in a beautiful hadith that he was sent, I have been sent to perfect akhlaq. Akhlaq means moral character, adab, muamalat, everything combined. Ethics, everything comes within this akhlaq. He was the epitome. And he is our role model because he was the epitome for that. He was Rahmatul lil Alamin, and he was Uswaya Hasana. And he was privileged to being a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which nobody apart from prophets can be privileged, but we can follow him through how the Sahaba followed him. Sahaba saw him daily, every now and then or daily, and the way they followed, our job is just to follow them. And he has got another beautiful saying that make things easy, not difficult. Give glad tidings, not fear. That is also a fundamental aspect for Muslims to learn, because we have a tendency, especially as a South Asian, I can see I was raised in a South Asian family. There's a tendency of making things difficult in our community, for our young children. Yassiru wala tu'assiru, bashiru wala tunaffiru. Make things easier, not difficult. And give good tidings or glad tidings. Do not frighten people. So these are the things that we have to keep in mind as parents, as adults, when we raise our children. Because when children in their, say, early 0 to 7 or 7 to 14, these are the main ages. If we burden them on Islam being a very burdensome religion, then there are fears. And if we make things easier, I'm not saying compromising in some Islamic course and principles, then they will love Islam and they will do things on their own volition. And parents will just probe, nod, and agree and thank them. That's the wonderful thing, that parents can make their home loving, caring, and easier things, easygoing, and in terms of social behavior, in terms of Islamic adab and akhlaq, that becomes the more or less a breeding ground for creating future generations or leaders of the ummah. Next slide, inshallah. The next slide is more or less the explanation or expansion of what I have just said. Knowledge. Iman and Amal, these are the core things. Without Iman, Amal is not accepted. Without Amal, Iman is just a theory. But for understanding this Iman and Amal perfectly or better, we have to have knowledge. We have to have ilm. And ilm has got such a superiority. And this superiority was proven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when he first created Adam alayhi salam. And Adam alayhi salam was given knowledge. And the angels and jinns were not given. And Adam alayhi salam proved his superiority in knowledge. That's why the others were asked to do sajda or accept Adam's superiority. And arrogance came in his Iblis and he became Iblis. So the reason this story is important, that Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam also is the epitome of knowledge. The first one revealed to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Jibreel alayhi salam was Iqra, read or recite. And from then onwards, the whole Quran is the source of knowledge. And I will mention just two hadiths, and the last one is not a hadith, it's my saying. And one is the seeking knowledge is an obligation or fard upon every Muslim. That is from Sunan ibn Majah. And that's an authentic hadith. It's not even a Hasan, or it's an authentic hadith. So knowledge is further compulsory. And anything that we do which is further in Islam, learning how to do this is also further. And also living our livelihood, a basic education that we need to live as dignified human being, as Khalifa of Allah on earth needs basic knowledge. That's also further. Now, this second hadith is probably, to me, it is something. Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, and that's mentioned in the Sunan al-Tirmidhi, the virtue of the scholar over the worshipper. Here, scholar means a scholar who practices, obviously. And the worshiper means who prays and fast and all sorts of things, but have very little or no knowledge. The virtue of the scholar over the worshipper is like my virtue, means Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's virtue over the least of you. Can you imagine Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's status, Rahmatul lil Alamin, Uswatul Hasana, and an ordinary Muslim like us? What's the difference? So the scholar is compared to a worshipper like that. Then the second part of the hadith is, verily Allah, his angels, the inhabitants of the heaven and earth, we don't know who are these inhabitants. There may be many other creatures. Even the ant in his hole and the fish in the water send blessings upon the one who teaches people what is good. People can only teach what is good is if they know this. That means they are a scholar. So that sets the agenda for Muslims. And this should be the beginning of a renaissance of Islam if we want to make. It's not just economic, it's not political, which are important in their own way, but that's important. So what I said towards the end is, so the level of a Muslim character is directly linked with his or her knowledge of Islam and modeling of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's akhlaq. If we have Islamic knowledge, worldly knowledge, to compare this text and context, and if we know Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's character, Shimal Tirmizi, his sirah, and how Sahaba radiallahu anhu saw him and heard him. So any Muslim character is just equivalent or directly proportional. The reason Muslims are, there are lots of sayings about current Muslim situation. Some people say that there is Islam in the West, but there is virtually very few Muslims. That means Western people in many countries, things are changing now, unfortunately. Ethical, from ethics, behavior side, apart from the sexual side, far better than probably many Muslim countries. And also, some people say that there are Muslims in the Muslim land, Muslim majority country, but there is very little Islam in those countries. That is very unfortunate. Let's go to the next slide, inshallah. Okay, so the reason I have been saying this, because reading or knowledge and akhlaq, they're interlinked. And Islam for children, I mentioned this, that if we can make Islam as a loving religion, easier religion, then it becomes easier to follow Islam. They love to do things. Without even knowing things, they will do things that will be Islamic. and what Islam demands from not only children, but basically from parents, because parents are those who are the catalyst for bringing change in the children's character. Parents are those who invest their time in raising the Khalifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth, or stewards of earth on earth. So this is a huge responsibility. It's the greatest gift, but it's a huge amana or trust. So Islam for children, if we can make things easier, we have to follow, that means parents have to follow them. Children will then model this. And in a house where parents pray, children will come and join. When parents read something, children obviously see that. So children's brain are like sponges. Everything that happens around, they see or they hear, they are embedded in their small, well, by the time children's brain is not small. By the time a child is born, it's probably 2/3 of their size of the brain is there. Okay, so main thing is akhlaq. When I say akhlaq, there are a few things. It's not just respecting elders. That's an akhlaq, obviously. Akhlaq means it's muamalat. That's the people dealing. How we deal with people, with our own spouse, with our own neighbors, with our own family members, elderly people, young people. This is people dealings. And also how we interact and build or sustain relationships. That is also fundamentally important. That is part of akhlaq as well. And what is our daily adab and mannerism and adabs? Giving salam, giving preference to others, and all these basic things. And if we go in an advanced level, is how we live peacefully in this small planet, because planet's ecosystem, environment, weather, these are affecting us. And as Muslims, we should not only be good to human beings, with our own people, only with Muslims, but with the whole of humanity, but also with this, our small planet. And that is a big discussion nowadays. Green movement has started. So are we part of this? That is also muamalat, because it's related with creation. One is haqqullah, our right, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's right. The other is haqqul ibad, the right of the creation over us. And that's why I just try to explain with whom. It's a family, extended family, our friends, our colleagues, our neighbors, our community, our society, our country, and our friend, our world. That means akhlaq encompasses, our good akhlaq should encompass whoever is around us, whatever is around us. Even say, wasting water, wasting tissue papers, these are common in the Western society. We can rub our hand with a small piece of tissue paper, but people bring things one after another, 3-4 tissue papers. That's the wastage. And using the water, nobody sees it. I give my bill, so what? So what is not the issue, because the planet's resources are limited. And as Muslim, we should be looking after the planet more and better than any other human beings on earth, because we are, and we should be educated on this akhlaq, on this nature, on this moral character or ethical character. Next slide, inshallah. This is about the reading habits at home. So one is this. I've just tried to formulate the idea in my own understanding and how we create reading habits at home. When I say reading habits, it doesn't simply go for the children. It goes first with the parents. And here I read one book, and the author says, he was a former teacher. Author says the parents should even pretend that they are reading when their children come home. So that children come home and they say parents are reading. This pretension is okay, even if parents were not reading at the time. We don't have to pretend, because we have to earn knowledge. Okay, so first question is, no matter how rich or poor we are, no matter how big our house or not, do we have a bookshelf at home? A small, diverse book, Islamic book, contemporary books, some subject book, so that children can relate to a bookshelf. And we can relate to the bookshelf. We can sit around the bookshelf at a certain period. And does this bookshelf have enough and diverse books? It doesn't have to be a big library, but does it have enough book for a family to go through, for adult reading, for children's reading, and for in different subjects? Third is, that's what I mentioned, do you read books? This question is for the parents. And do your children read? That means, has reading become a habit along with many other things in the family? If it becomes a habit, daily or weekly, then parents can probably relax a bit, and children can automatically get involved in reading on their own. And do your children see you reading? That's important. I mentioned in the beginning. Do you read with them, and how often? So sometimes you have to read with them. It blends relationship. Relationship is improved when children and parents read together. And also, how often do you do this? One should have a weekly plan. Brooke, sorry, there's a noise in my mobile. So this should be more or less. I have to close it. Sorry. Reading with children gives normally an enormous psychological boost to the children, and it builds relationship. And how do the children react? That's also important thing. If parents do read, they see their children read, but how do they react? And that's how we can interact with them. If they react positively, then encourage them. If they react probably a bit negatively, then find out the reason why it is. And also, do you discuss books with them? That's another phase, especially with any children of any age, and depending on their age and depending on their maturity. And also, how often do you visit your local library with your child? That is important, because children will feel that you have interest and you take him or her to the local library. The way we take our children to the park for play and other things, if we take children to the library occasionally, that really, really helps. And another important thing is, for a community where there are Muslims, can you set up a book club near you? That is also important. Recently, for the last couple of years, I have been trying to form some book clubs. There are 3 book clubs that, alhamdulillah, have been working through our collective initiative, and I find pleasure in attending them, inshallah. Next slide, inshallah. So far, I have talked about the home environment, parental responsibility towards their children, in getting them interested and in reading, and also themselves reading. But children, once they are probably 3.5 or 4, they go to nursery, and from 5 in England, they go to primary school and secondary school until 16. So I can see sometimes parents feel that if they send their children to a grammar school or good school or a Muslim school, they feel relaxed. Of course, always they should relax, but schools cannot raise your children the way you want. School can only help and support. So there should be a direct interactive relationship with the school and home. In Britain, it's called home school partnership. I have brought it, school and home partnership is more or the same. We have to show interest in our child's education. Send child to schools every day on time. That's the basic thing. And if you don't do this without any reason, there could be prosecution. But that's another big issue, educational issue. And the relationship between a school and parent is a two-way communication. It's not just you just attend parents' evening once a year or 1 or 2 events. If parents are relatively free, they can spend more time, they can help the school, because school and home, both of them are community related. Talk with relevant staff if there is any issue, proactively. Send a letter or talk, and just do not wait for school to come and talk with you. Show interest or be active in school life. That is important, because that will energize your children. If you help your children's school and your child sees that you are there in the school occasionally or sometime, they will feel really, really good. And teachers will also value this contribution, and teacher will probably give extra attention to the child. And know your children schools, know these children's schools behavior and discipline policies, because these are the two important policy that a school has should have, and that will set the agenda for how good the school is or how bad. And especially in the inner city schools, these are issues. So you have to choose this school according to how they maintain the behavior of the children and how discipline. Of course, curriculum and contents are important. Attend the school meetings regularly, and if there are some parents who communication-wise are find difficulty, then they should definitely take someone with them from their family or friends in the parents' meeting at least. And of course, parents should show sensitivity and empathy with class teacher and the school rules. Obviously, that's important in a democratic society. And also share information with teacher about your child's life at home, if there is anything to share. If we go to the next slide, inshallah, there are these two, then inshallah we'll complete. Knowledge and family culture. In a family, parents are the leaders, and whatever they do in the family, they should do this with involvement with the children. Depending on their age, they should seek their opinions, they will consult, and it depends on the individual families. And I'm sure conscious parents and sensitive parents do this. So in every family, if not written, there should be an informal or formal informal family rules, including on screen time. Screen time means using mobile and other things, with clear boundaries. If children are if there are teenage children, you can ask one of them to write down and probably discuss with them about how they feel should the rule be, what should be included. And if they come with 10, 20 rules, as teacher we have learned, the 10, 20 rules normally don't work. So prioritize them, make it 3 to 5 rules. And that's what when I was a teacher long ago, 9 years ago, I had to do this. More than 5 is clumsy. And so handful of rules in consultation or with involvement with your own children. And agreed policy of rewards and sanctions. Rewards for compliance and sanctions for failure. And that has to be done in a sensitive way. Rewards should be natural. Sanctions also should not go beyond say withdrawing certain extra things that you want to do. You cannot sanction children with food and other things or basic things. You can only do things that are you wanted to give the child this gift or something. For some reason they haven't succeeded. So you withdraw for a time with clear explanation so that they don't take that as a punishment. Sanction should be separated from punishment. Children, I mentioned children should be involved in making these rules. And also, it's very important, children should be raised with age-appropriate household chores from their small ages. For preschool children, for primary children, for secondary school, there could be different lists of what you can ask them to do. You cannot ask a 10-year boy which a 15-year-old boy cannot do. You cannot, same thing with boy and girl. And so parents must be knowledgeable and sensitive as to what they can do. One thing is they should not pressure this. That should be done given through interest and as an experiment. It should be bite size. Bite size means you give small things. Children can do this, then you can praise them. They will feel happy. So it's a win-win situation. If you give them a clumsy thing or very tough thing, they will not be able to do this. You don't get the opportunity to praise them, and they will not be happy. So it's a simple rule. And most important nowadays is about the children's online activities or screen time. This has been a major issue. Although we are using this screen now, Zoom and other things for connecting ourselves. So we are not against science or discoveries. It is about using things for the proper purpose and on time so that we don't get addicted. It's not only children, it's for parents. Many parents can get addicted with their screens. And I know, and I have seen parents sitting with children in the dining table, parents watching individually or using their WhatsApp or whatever, and children doing this. There is hardly any communication. This is not the this should not be in a Muslim family, or this is not part of Islamic parenting. So electronic gadgets helps to learn anything under the sun. So there is a huge opportunity, but there are dark sides. Definitely many dark sides in the electronic gadgets, especially online, Wi-Fi, etc. You know, the 3 girls from East London who ran away and from Istanbul to Syria. Look at this situation. They were virtually groomed by social media through screens. And so it is important that we keep our children away from pornography, from extremism and other things. So children can be addictive to children unless parents, through the family rules and through proper understanding and through their personal practice, make this family culture that will only use a screen when it is needed. On occasion, you can watch collectively a film or some good things. There are bad things about addiction. Is potential obesity is one of them, can lead to their less social family interaction that I mentioned, and can create in them a virtual world away from the reality. And that's how children become pornographic and children become extremists. And also it can put them in cyberbullying and all sorts of issues in the society that we are familiar with. So if we keep our if we create a family culture, knowledge-based, with a strong but flexible discipline, assertive discipline, then it will be helping us as parents, and it will create in the children an ethos and environment of enthusiasm and inspiration for a better adult life, inshallah. The last slide, inshallah, and that's about motivating our children. How do we motivate our children, all of them that we have discussed? And that is quite a number of things. I'll just go through them. Personal space is important, and our role model is Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. If living parents can be role models for their children, that will be the wonderful thing. And for that to happen, a parent must behave like a good Muslim, good human being, good and a good citizen of this country. So children should be given love and respect, space. They should be involved in household chores. And if they can do things properly, we can hug them, we can kiss them, we can do many things. They will feel encouraged. And that will build their self-esteem and empathy and confidence. And we can give them healthy competition. Normal competition or comparing one child with another child or one able child with another is not acceptable. So healthy competition is important, and that could be done with fun. Siblings can help, their younger siblings, and bite-sized successes I mentioned, decent recreation, and of course, higher expectation, ambition. I say 1 or 2 words on this. The reason Muslim communities, especially from South Asian Muslims, while they're doing good in education, they're going to the best universities, even in terms of job, they are not getting better jobs. Okay, discrimination, racism, Islamophobia is there. But one of the fundamental internal reason to me is there is less aspirational aspect at home, in our mosques, in our community organizations. We are happy being pious. We are happy doing small things. Our children should have aspiration that will come from parental discussion at home, that they should be a, say, Chief Justice of this country, there should be a minister, there should be a University of High Chancellor. Of course, any ambition should be related with the reality. I'm not saying that you just hype up. given children's internal ability, maturity, and understanding, you give them the ambition and aspiration for them to do better things on earth. That is, in my observation, I may be wrong, that is in my observation, is seriously lacking in our community. That's why after 40, 50, 60 years, other communities have created lots of people in different fields in the leadership position. Muslims are handful. Even those Muslims who have gone to the top in certain areas, many of them probably do not have any Muslimness or identity as Muslims. So it is a big issue and it has to be addressed very seriously. And of course, lastly, we have to make things exciting and appealing and encouraging and inspirational, whatever we do. So motivation has a theory. Motivation theory, those who are teachers and those who are leaders, they are expert. If parents are teachers and leaders, they will be better understand. They will better understand this, and they will be able to do this. But real parenting or educating is an element where parental expertise have to be applied to the real children in the real home, in the real time. Parents can get tired, parents can get anxious and angry. So these are other areas of parenting that is a matter of another discussion. So probably I've taken a bit longer time than I was asked, but let's see what brothers and sisters feel. Jazakumullah khair. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Dr. Abdul Bari, thank you for those words and a very broad understanding, not just about reading and character, but also how to raise our children as well. MashaAllah. Thank you so much for that. We're going to now spend the next just over 15 minutes on question and answers. And I know that there are some questions that have already arrived in the chat box. But as I said at the beginning, what we'd like to try out is, you raising your hand, the good old raising your hand, and then I can get you to ask your question verbally if you want to. When I mean raise your hand, I don't mean in the camera. I mean, there are some features here in Zoom under reactions. You can actually click on it and to raise your hand. You can do that. Whilst you do that, and let me ask you, Dr. Abdul Bari, there are a couple of questions that I'm going to combine together. The first one is, please share some examples of strategies, approach, methodologies, and techniques on how to mitigate the negative impacts of internet online activity. That connects with the other question, which is, can you suggest how to combat the competition of computer games with reading time, particularly teenagers?
Okay, Jazakumullah khair. Both are related with the electronic gadget that I have mentioned. This is a temptation, and we occasionally, probably all of us, fall into this temptation. And sometimes I joked in some places, there are people I have seen nearby when there was Salah Jama, Islam Mosque or any other place. I have seen some people physically that just before Takbir Tahrima, switch off the mobile, and after Salah, as if something was waiting from somewhere, they will open the mobile and see. So this is a human tendency to be tempted, and devil is very expert. He's not powerful. So what we have to do, practice what you preach. Say, parents have to fundamentally, initially first realize that in order to educate and raise their children, they have to change. They have to change themselves. They have to go through their strong personal internal discipline at home so that children see this, children realize this. And then it becomes easier once you are confident and have the knowledge, and then you are able to talk with your children. And of course, there are news that those who produce billions of electronic gadgets, some of the CEOs, billionaires, multi-billionaires, they do not allow their own children to use iPhone or iPad in their early phase of the of the life. So they are virtually selfish. So we have to be selfish in the sense that for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the sake of our children. So once we control ourselves, then through family discussion, we create an ethos, we create a discipline, and we discuss with our own children. We discuss freely and frankly, depending on their age. Things should be discussed at home, and children should feel that they are part of the family. Their opinions are valued. They can come with bizarre questions or silly questions or things that probably will be shocked if we hear in any other Islamic environment. But we have to accept the reality that we live in a society, postmodern society, where lifestyle has changed, where values have changed, sexual morality has totally changed. So one is we have to personally change. Second is you have to create a family environment with children's participation and involvement. And if children are, say, you can see the children are getting addicted, and if both parents keep an eye on the children and parents discuss, and in fact, in my opinion, if children are in the early age, parents should discuss things within themselves every night. How did today go? How we can get back better. So then two parents come up along with children's involvement, some mitigating measures, and that can become a family rule. That can become established, and children maybe once or twice they may break, but that's not the end of the world. So we can gradually do this. And the second part of the question was forgot. What? Sorry, you are mute. You're selfish. You're okay. Sorry.
The question was in relation to how to get teenagers off of, I suppose, being distracted by anything online.
Okay.
That was the question.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think that the answer has been given, but that's what I personally feel, and that's what I think we should do.
Inshallah.
And teenager, by the time a child becomes teenage means 13. 13 means towards the end of the second phase of Islamic parenting. 14 is the second phase. Have we done our job properly from beginning to until the teenage period, and in their primary age, and that begs questions. And if parents fail to do that, then what do they do? Then I think by the time they failed, by the time they realize things have changed, by the time they realize the child has become teenage, so they should sit one-to-one or in a family, in a good environment, and discuss with the children that, look, my son, look, my whatever beautiful name, apologize for their past mistakes, that I personally was not up to the mark, and I'm sorry that probably I didn't give enough attention to you, this and that. So apologizing to children for our past failures is not a taboo. We should do that. And then communication should start. So this communication will take this somewhere, and parents by that time probably will know who are the children's close friends, who do they listen to. So try to give them a good company, or advise them to good company, or try to convince them to go to this mosque or go this circle, if you are aware. So it's a matter of negotiation with the child, because the child is now more or less, teenage means probably baligh. And in Islam, there is no adolescence. In Islam, there is non-puberty children and post-puberty. Post-puberty means baligh. Baligh means Islamic law applies on them. So it is difficult at that age, when they are baligh, to behave them harshly or give them lectures. We have to find an emotional way of, through loving and caring environment. Mom or dad, or mom and dad together, should invest their time to bring back their children from those habits that have grown. It may not be easy, but we should not give up.
MashaAllah. So I think what I gather from that is that if we see children who are addicted, who feel compelled to go onto social media, in many respects, it's our own inactivity which perhaps is causing that. And actually, there isn't an easy way to do this other than just rolling up our sleeves and doing the good old talking to our children and engaging them and involving them. And as has been mentioned at the beginning, you mentioned, you kind of loosely mentioned friendship. We're not friends, but you need to be friendly.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
this idea of being a companion to them, all of those things, if we are doing those things, then I think that really is the strategy behind making sure that our children, I always used to say this when I was younger, when my children were younger, they're teenagers now, and I always found that they would watch TV, okay? The moment I said, do you want to do X? It could be something trivial in the garden to anything. They would jump off of that sofa and they would want to do that thing, because for them, the most engaging, the most interesting thing is, I want to do something with my mum or dad. Okay, particularly at a young age. Now, teenagers, I know, are a little bit different. If you say to them, "Oh, do you want to do X, Y, Z?" They'll look at you and think, "Are they? Is he serious? Okay, is he actually serious?" But honestly, my own personal experience is, even with teenagers, they might say, "Are you serious?" As in, are you having me on here? Do you really mean what you're saying? But I think engaging with, in the same way we used to engage with them when they were 5, 6 years old, you know. In fact, we have stopped engaging with them. That's why they've stopped engaging with us. That's
I think
my
the reason you succeeded, probably you had built a relationship that you could say this and they could follow you. But I have seen many parents do not have that relationship with their, especially teenage children. I know quite a lot of stories, and even after in parenting course, asking them to talk with their children. One father was saying for 12 weeks, he couldn't make his son sit with him. That means that relationship was not there anymore, unfortunately.
Dr. Abdul Bari, I remember, this is around about 13 years ago now. You delivered a lecture in Regent's Park Mosque. Something that you said there which sat with me for a very long time. And you talked about, I want you to repeat this if you remember, and it talked about a father who spoke to maybe a friend or somebody else, and he described his children, and they said, "Oh, how old are your children?" Or how they must be very tall or something like this. And he described them like this,
Yeah.
like this. And I thought, that's a very strange thing to say.
Yeah.
But right at the end, the point was made, and it was a very hard-hitting point. And it's a reality, isn't it?
Yeah,
Perhaps you can repeat that for everyone. They don't know what we're talking about.
No, if especially fathers, if fathers see them only at night sleeping, then they can only give the age of their children like this. One is this side, another this side, depending on how long they are lying occupying their bed. That means, I used to say this about restaurant business owners or restaurant workers. What time, 6 days a week, and the break day means one day break, completely sleeping. Parents, especially fathers, do not have interaction weeks after weeks after weeks. So this will happen.
Absolutely. Can I ask you, and I can see your memoir on over your left shoulder there, okay? Now, to what extent is there a disconnect with teachers and what is going on in civic society? Now, I know teachers, we might teach English, maths, and science, and if you're primary school age, you're teaching all of them. We are ultimately preparing young people for society. But is there a disconnect with teachers' understanding of what is happening? And some of the understanding happens through reading. How can teachers be much more aware of what is happening in civic society through the reading, through choices of what they're reading as well?
Well, it's a big discussion. Teachers are part of the society. Some of them are parents. And if teachers are good parents, they are good neighbors, and they understand the society, then they will spend the time with their students on the whole aspect of a child. What we want with our children is, or from us, we want basically good human beings on earth. We want good citizens of a country. And as Muslims, we want to become good Muslims. So these three things are important in our personal ethos, in our raising children. And a teacher should have similar aims. Although secondary science teacher will probably teach only science or mathematics, that's fine. But is that teacher does that teacher display good behavior? It's not part of his maths teaching, but does he display good behavior with children, how they talk? A human being is a full human being. Our professions is only for professional purpose, but at the end of the day, we are human beings. And one of my identities is I have been a teacher. Okay, my teaching role and good human being or good citizen or good Muslim, they do not contradict, they are complementary. So Muslim teachers at least should have all these aspects when they teach their children. And in the wider society, the Islam doesn't come. Akhlaq probably doesn't come in the way that we understand, but they know, and many in the Western society are honest, hardworking, love their country. So this is a nationalist or good citizen of the country. But what about good human being and good Muslim? Say Muslim teacher should be aware of these three aspects. A normal non-Muslim teacher can only represent a good citizen aspect. So teachers also, that's why I think teaching profession is fundamentally important. And I mentioned of the Japanese story, Meiji Restoration. They invested in primary and secondary education resource-wise, as well as I learned from one of the articles that they recruited the best of teachers with probably multiple salaries to work in the primary and secondary sectors with devotion, dedication, knowledge, behavior, and Far East Asian people's external behavior wise, they're superb. Business dealings and others, they surpass the Western people. They bow their head and they show their respect. So this has become part and parcel of the Japanese culture, and that was probably not there before Meiji Restoration came. There are all sorts of fighting and other things going on like any other society, but they have learned through that restoration and they have maintained that. And within a generation, and still they are probably, I say they are the most reading nation because probably there are 5 or 6 daily newspapers and their subscribers are 10 to 15 million. In our country, in Britain, only probably Sun has got 4.5 or 5 million circulation, not Guardian or Telegraph.
Thank you for that. Okay, so I'm going to, I know we haven't got much time. I want to take a couple of questions from the virtual floor. So let's go with Brother Amjad Malik. I'm going to unmute you now. And if you can ask your question, please.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for that lecture. My point was about the fact that our children are ethnic children, and you spoke about reading and talking and so forth for children. But my question is about language and the use of language. Do you think the parents could use their own language to speak to the children, the mother tongue, or should it only be in English, or both?
This is important, and gradually I think people are realizing that language is a vehicle of body language is fundamentally important. So a father or mother could be educated in another country and language probably skill is not enough, but body language and the love and affection that overcomes the hurdle. Of course, any language carries the culture. It's not just the word or accent. So in a household, parents, of course, in my observation, and I honestly require that all parents should learn and try to better themselves in communication in English, because this is important. We live in an English country, and English is by far, I discussed this another circle, that during the early civilizational stage of Islam, Arabic was the main language and Persian became the language of the science. Nowadays, after Arabic, because that will ever remain the Islamic language, after Arabic, I think English is the second most important language on earth, even for Muslims. because Muslims are there everywhere. And the books written for and against Islam by Muslims and non-Muslims, they are probably a huge number. I don't know the number of books in Arabic, but I think that is important. So my request will be parents should try to better their communication in the language that children understand. But I think they, because they are living in the same house, they are able to communicate easily with each other. I have seen in Bangladeshi communities, parents with Sylheti, broken Sylheti English communicate very well with their children. Children do appreciate that. So language itself should not be a barrier. It's communication, effective communication, and passionate, loving communication will impact more than probably the accent or some broken English. That's my personal observation.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Okay, we are going to draw this to a close, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Dr. Abdul Bari, it's been an absolute pleasure. I wish we could talk a lot more, but that's the nature of the 1 hour webinars. Inshallah, we'll invite you again. The last point about the kind of the intergenerational learning, which I think is becoming more and more popular now. I think people are starting to realize actually it's not just the parental responsibilities, but also the grandparents as well. And I know certainly the school that I am head teacher at, we've also used that to a degree, where there's a day when the grandparents come in and are with the young children. I know also in a couple of weeks' time, just to flag this up for the virtual audience, is that a couple of weeks' time we're going to have Dr. Mahira Ruby, and I know that she based her PhD on exactly this, which is the intergenerational learning, inshallah. So whilst that session is on maintaining relationships and mental health, we'll throw in a question to do with intergenerational learning as well, inshallah. Just to let everybody know that next week, the same time next week at 4 o'clock, we have Dr. Musharraf Hussain, who's going to be talking about studying the life-changing message of the Quran. And for those of you that don't know, Dr. Musharraf Hussain, mashallah, he completed a translation and a translated meaning of the Quran in English. I have a copy, I have a signed copy, mashallah. And it really is a different approach to translating the Quran. And he will be talking about that, not necessarily the translation, but also how the Quran can have much more impact in our lives, inshallah. So once again, can I thank Dr. Abdul Bari again for joining us, and to thank the audience members. I apologize that we couldn't answer all of your questions, but inshallah, perhaps another time. Please join us next week. Until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.